Today I'm talking about ADHD strengths and weaknesses, and it's me in the hot seat this time, being interviewed by Jay Hobbs, who is a psychologist and CEO of Thriving Now. Hi everyone, I'm Angie Hilton. I work in television, so I produce a TV show called Destination Happiness. I also work in the entertainment industry as a singer, and I teach singing on the side, so I do lots of bits and pieces, of course, because I have ADHD. I have to do lots of different things. I only found out officially that I have it as of last year, so it's all unfolding and it's really a fascinating journey.
Amazing to chat with you, Angie. It really is. I have seen Destination Happiness. Well done on that. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Being able to dive into lots of people's lives and how they experience it is amazing. And great to chat with you. I'm really pleased.
E-meet. Yeah, we'll be e-meeting everyone in the world at the moment.
Exactly. So I've got a very serious question for you. Is it true? Do all dogs have ADHD? Is it true, Angie? Is it? Have you heard of that?
Who wrote that book?
Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't. It kind of makes sense, except maybe like Saint Bernards that just want to lay around all day.
Exactly. And so this thing about ADHD, I'd love to chat with you more about your own personal experience, but really in your job as a TV presenter, what are your strengths? What are your major strengths?
As a presenter or producer, I guess...
You do it all, do you? You do...
I produce... Well, what happened, just to give you a little bit of background, so I was in TV presenting. I was always drawn to what's the exciting thing. I want to work on a travel show. I want to be entertaining. I want to be go. What's next? Exciting, something different every day. So I started in TV presenting, and that was always fun. But then I had, I guess, challenges with mental health, probably due to ADHD, but I didn't realise at the time. So I had severe anxiety that peaked and just floored me. I was, couldn't work, couldn't really function for a long time. So I was rebuilding myself, studying happiness and how could I stay happy? How could I dig myself out of the hole? And then how could I share it if I got through it? So once I got through it, I thought, I just want to share it with as many people who will listen in the world. So I thought, let's try and make a TV show. I thought, well, I've never made a TV show, but surely I can do that. That's a typical ADHD thing to think is, yeah, let's give it a go. So I just came up with a concept for Destination Happiness, being around health and well-being, mainly around mental health and happiness, and just looking at all the aspects of life with your mental health and your body health and how you eat and how you live and bringing joy to others. So put it into a show and then chipped away at, well, what happens next? I'll just make it up as I go along. So I met with the networks and I formulate this product and a team that could support my abilities and lack of ability. So the people that could do the stuff that I couldn't do, which you really need as someone with ADHD, people to do the finer details. And somehow it just came together, and I've done 3 series now. But I do know that if I didn't have ADHD, there's no way I would have tackled it, because I tend to act first, think later. Whereas a lot of people would think first, act later. I tend to jump in and work out how to swim or save myself as I'm getting through. So that can be a bad thing, but then it also makes things happen that maybe other people wouldn't even attempt, because they think logically and think, oh, that's going to be really hard.
I think that's wonderful. I think, and Richard Branson said, didn't he, famously said, screw it, just do it.
I haven't heard that, but that's brilliant.
And Richard himself has been open about his ADHD.
Yes.
But I reckon if you had have researched what does it take to make a TV show successful, you probably wouldn't have done it.
Absolutely not. No way. And to start with, I'm really bad at sitting down and reading anything. Too boring. I have to just do it. I can't study how to. I have to learn from my mistakes by doing it.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of people like that, with ADHD and without.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real strength of yours, by the sounds of it, that you are prepared to give it a go and work hard and try it, because turning up is half the battle. Actually, just creating something.
Yeah.
One of the things that is important that I help other people with ADHD like me reflect on is, how does this thing that you want to dive into, how does that fit with your values, your personal values? And maybe happiness really is a core of that, but how does it actually fit with your values? And so for you, the Happiness Project actually was going to be something that helped others see what people do to have a happy life, and that's different for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think,
your values, what would you say on that?
I guess whatever I become passionate about, I have to do it, like get that hyper focus that comes with ADHD. So the fact that I didn't want anyone to go through mental health issues if they didn't have to, I wanted to give them preventative measures that they could take on so that they didn't have to feel as bad as I felt. So that was my driving force underneath everything. So it was like I can just channel into that. And okay, there's an obstacle, just move through, keep moving through. And I think you get tenacity with ADHD. It's like a dog at a bone, you know.
Yes.
You just got to make it happen, and you keep pushing till it happens. So it definitely, that's the superpower of it. But the hyper focus you can get at times can be a challenge to everyone else around you, because, you know, I might be full steam ahead with that, but the house might be an absolute shambles, and the kids might be, you know, I'm not getting my full attention, and the you know, laundry piles up everywhere. So lots of things just fall away because I'm just like in the zone and I'm doing this and I don't care what else is going on. So that I really have to watch that. But it's always driven by whatever my passion is at that time. That's all I'm doing, really.
And do you change passions? Do you get that hyper focus and then you get bored of it, or burn out, or how does it play out for you?
Well, with the Destination Happiness production, I've done, I think it's pretty interesting that I have stayed with it even for 3 years, because I'm usually, oh, bright and shiny, let's do this, oh, bright and shiny, as anyone who has it would know. And I might have had lots of creative ideas that, oh, I'd love to do that, and I might start it and do a bit, and then, oh, but that idea is a bit better, and I'll just, Destination Happiness, the show, actually made me lock into something because I was committed to a television station, I was committed to sponsors, I was committed to the staff on the show, and I couldn't let people down by just going, I've had enough of that. and it had purpose and meaning, which is a big part of my life. I like to, if I don't feel like I'm helping others or contributing in some way to making the world a better place, I feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think happiness can be as well different things. It's within us. And I think challenge in your work life is a big part of it for me, and interest and learning new things. And so I think for some people with ADHD, like a consultant is a great job, because you can go into a workplace and, you know, analyze it and give advice and then go somewhere else.
Yes, yes.
A bit like Destination Happiness. So, okay, what are your other strengths? You must have other strengths at work as well. What are that?
Well, have you done the character strengths test, the VIA character strengths test?
No.
You would love it. Actually, It's something that everybody should do in their lives. It gives you your
Myers-Briggs?
No, it's VIA character strengths test. I can get the details for you, because I think it's free and everyone just should do it. You can do it as a teenager up to, you know, adults, and it gives you your top 20 character strengths. And it's just a lovely reflection for everyone, because, you know, we all beat ourselves up in some way, to see these character strengths and you go, right, that makes sense, because my top one is blah, 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 or my bottom one, most of my family actually, it's self-regulation. So my psychologist friend said, it's a wonder any of you can get out the door in the morning, which we don't very well anyway. But I could see that my top strength was creativity. Spirituality was another one. What was it? I think kindness or something was up there, and the ability to love and be loved or something like that. But just knowing, okay, creativity is my top strength. That makes sense. Of course, I'm just going to go, how can we make this show really interesting, and interviews, how can we keep it from being, you know, we've got to get the juice out of things. It can't be boring for a second. So I think that I brought the creativity to the table on that, but then I'd have fantastic people around me that would just take those ideas and make sense of it. So
the research in this area says that an ADHD brain is creative and it's bold. And really it's what you've just described. So, and that's part of your personality, isn't it? The ADHD brain. So the creativity comes because it's not very sequential. It's a bit more different than that, and it brings creativity and a different approach. And then the boldness comes with the want and the need for learning and new things.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So creativity, kindness. Well, yeah, they're great.
Spirituality was another one. I don't know whether that's a common thing with ADHDers. So
which one?
Spirituality. I don't know. Have you noticed that in your studies with psychology?
I think that's an important one for any of us, especially when we get a bit older, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Especially in times like this where, the world is chaotic and you don't know what to turn to. So if you've got, I guess, a philosophy with spirituality, it's a big strength.
Yeah. I think spirituality is brilliant. It's not so much what I do in my work, although meditation is really helpful for so many people. And it's just that pause, and we're being forced now, aren't we, with this lockdown, to pause. And for me, actually, it's hard. It's difficult to pause, but I think it's needed, reflecting on the values. Absolutely. I was inspired by someone thinking about this lockdown and around the world, what's happening. A guy called Kerwin Ray.
Oh, yes, we had him on the show. He's great.
He's brilliant. And he just said, what's the opportunity? What is the opportunity? And I just took that and I thought, he's of course right. Look at it differently. And so I'm having to reimagine my business and think about surviving and helping people. But what's the opportunity? I think there's a lot in that, work life and others. So what about some of your previous jobs? How have you gone in those, strengths and challenges?
Well, I guess I haven't had a job. I guess I've been my own boss for a long time, purely because I probably find it hard to either take orders or do things in a do things the way someone else tells me to do it. So I've avoided, the only time I've really had a real job was working for my mum and dad in the post office, and that didn't turn out very well. But I think back to school, I just was never cut out to do things the way I guess the school system worked, and potentially the work just following structure. So I guess I need that freedom. So that's why I've always either been singing or performing in some way or presenting, because every week of my life I've never known what I'm doing next week, which may sound terrifying to other people, but and I've never known what income I will have from week to week. So I wonder sometimes if I'd be better knowing, like having a little bit more structure, but it's just I haven't done it so far. So I do fly by the seat of my pants a lot. And yeah, I haven't been out of work my whole life. So part of me is having faith that, okay, if I have intentions for what I want, they generally come to fruition if I look back over my life. Yeah.
So, wow, fair enough. I'm the same. I've worked for lots of people. They haven't realised that I'm working on myself.
Yeah.
I do things, excuse me, I do things very differently. Why do you think that? Why do we think we do that? Why can't we? What is that?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I'm looking now at the school system because my daughter's now in year 7 and my son's in grade 5. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I have a little bit of post-traumatic stress from school. And just not knowing that I had ADHD in school, but always thinking, am I dumb? Why can't I take this in? Why is my brain not operating how others? Why can't I read out loud in front of the class? Why am I really good at some subjects and just cannot focus on the things I'm not interested in? So I had to find creative ways to get through year 12. Not great ways that I'd recommend to anyone else, but I just had to get through however I could. And I think if only I'd known. And I think things are changing at school now. They're recognising and giving options of learning styles, because it's just not set up for these types of brains, I don't think, or it definitely wasn't when I was at school. So yeah, even going into my daughter's school, it gives me this feeling of uncomfortable, or even still, I guess I have, I think part of ADHD is that you do have that suspicion of, I can't tell if I'm bright or dumb. Like there's this, and you beat yourself up a lot because you know you can get stuff done, but you know you can't retain information the same way others can. So I can tend to get intimidated easily by academic brains and think, get that imposter syndrome where I'm going to be busted soon. They're going to see that I don't know anything. I'm winging my way through things. So yeah,
that's fascinating. So really, school taught you resilience,
yeah,
and that creativity and doing things differently.
Yeah.
So did you feel you felt different at school from the other students? But how so, and how did it play out?
I guess for me it played out by, I'm just here for the social side, so I'll do the school musicals and the Rocksteads, and I'll do art, and I'll do music performance, and I'll be around the fun kids, the naughty kids, drawn to risk-taking behaviour, because now I know that's part of our brain needing, you would know all this stuff, but I think it is that we need the dopamine hit. I've got a neighbour across the road waving me down. I'm just on a phone call. Yeah, so needing that, I think, am I right that your brain doesn't release the same amount of dopamine that a neurotypical brain does? So we need that risk-taking behaviour to fire our brain. So now I understand why I was drawn to the naughty kids, why I started doing a lot of naughty things. I'm just on a phone call. Sorry, everyone. The neighbour's dropping off a bag of apples. Isn't that cute?
That's okay. That's okay.
She's not meant to be out of her house. She's quarantined. Anyway, yes, so I probably went off the rails because of the ADHD, not knowing that I was just trying to fire up my brain to focus by finding these naughty things. Yeah.
There's been, though, amongst scientists and psychologists and things, quite a negative in a medical model.
Yeah.
And really, I like the idea that ADHD is a hypersensitivity to boredom.
Yes.
And, teachers, step up, guys, step up. You need to be engaging all these students, not just the students with ADHD. If they did, a lot of students would benefit a lot more. Make it interesting. Now, that's a tough job. I've been a teacher. That's a tough job.
Yeah.
A lot of people around Australia are finding out how tough it is to make things interesting at home for kids.
Yes.
But yeah, so this idea of dopamine, I mean, we want challenging problems, and there's this idea that our brains don't take up the dopamine as much, but there's a lot of benefits to wanting to be engaged. There is, and they think in history the people with ADHD were the explorers. They weren't sat around the fire chatting. They were like, right, let's go to that mountain, let's go and check it out.
Yes.
So there's a lot of benefits to it, I think. I'm interested to ask, Angie, what is your greatest fear? What are you worried about in life, but work life?
With work life, did you say? Or
work life.
Work life. It's funny. I don't have. Nothing comes to mind straight away. I don't know. I don't feel like I operate from a space of fear at the moment, and that might be my faith background as well. Like I feel like,
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What do you avoid doing at work? What are you worried about? You said details are difficult, but how does that?
What do I avoid? It depends what. In work, the work I have been doing, I don't think I avoid anything particularly. But say if I started a new project and you said to me, you've got to read these documents first, even if it's 1 or 2 pages, like to me that's kind of torture. Yep. If you said listen to it, I could do that because I could walk around and listen to it at the same time. So I really struggle to get into details of study, or I feel like I really struggle to learn by text. Like I've never really been good at that. So.
Oh, okay, that's great. Well, it sounds like you've really got a handle on things. So that's brilliant. For me, I do avoid the details. Part of that's my dyslexia, but numbers, and I'm a bit like you. Sometimes I really feel forced to look at documents or do that really boring part. I'm just not interested in it.
I'm amazed that you studied and have done all these degrees to be able to get through that. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, well, I worked very hard, took a lot longer, but really, and used technology. When I was at school, I would write an essay or an assignment, pencil and pen and paper, and I would dumb it down so I could spell the thing.
Yeah. That's more dyslexia.
That's the dyslexia.
Yeah.
But I was good at sport, and I was an active person and a go-getter, and that actually saved me my confidence. I think it's really important.
Yes. Yes.
So I got through the uni by damn hard work, and also by assistance from a family member, my mum. My mum's career became how to support someone with dyslexia at school, or people who are having difficulty learning at school. There's a lot of kids out there, not just the dyslexic and ADHD kids or autism, but disengaging. A lot of kids disengaging. And so back to schools, step up, make it interesting, guys.
Yes.
So Angie, when you're at school and it was boring and you're looking for excitement, what happened then? You said you didn't want to be told what to do, and you hung out with the naughty kids sometimes. Tell me how that happened and what happened.
Aha. Well.
As far as you're happy to, right?
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking straight away. I'll flash through my head. What do I say that my kids might see one day? Well, I guess, and now I look at my friendship circle and my friendship circle at school, and think the people that I were drawn to hang out with most probably had ADHD, because if I look at my current friendship circle, most of them probably haven't, whether they're diagnosed or not, whether they'll watch this and hear me say that. But it's because our brains get each other, and it's just something that it's like an intuition. You don't say it, but they'll understand if I just go, oh, bright and shiny, let's talk about this. Oh no, let's talk about this. When you're just a bit more impulsive and, hey, let's go and do this. Yeah, great idea, let's do it. Whereas neurotypical brains, I guess I feel like I'm always trying to stay on with them. Like if we're in conversation, I'm like, stay focused, listen, in case I ask you a question and you've got to give them an answer back. You've got to make sure you're listening the whole time. Yeah. What I realise I tend to do with all my closest friends, our conversations are always deep quickly. Like we're always just really honest and getting into the nitty-gritty of what's going on in our lives. So
they're the best people. They're the best people. Right?
I think so. So I love honesty. I love truth. I think there's not enough truth in the world. I think we all need to just let our guards down, spill our guts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The social. So what a lot of the research says is that some of the challenges with social are, for people with ADHD, can be being too intense with friends and that putting people off. And the other thing, and this one is really something I've had personal experience with. People think you're not paying attention because you are. Oh, I just saw something. And, oh, no, we were talking. And they think you're disinterested in them as a friend.
Yeah.
The other one is not remembering to phone or to contact people.
Yes, or birthdays.
And so the weeks and months go by and someone thinks, well, hang on. Or even that people do that, I'm not phoning again until they phone.
Yes, yeah, that is really true.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff just around our working memory challenges and intensity that people don't like. But for me, and there's plenty others, I would much rather an honest, interesting person into things than anything else.
I think the downside, and now that I have been diagnosed I can sort of reflect on the past and see things that have happened that would have been related. I love that thing. I remember one of my closest friends would say to me, I ask you a question and then, no, sorry, you ask me a question and then you don't listen to the answer. And I'm, yeah, right, I do that. Or I'll be, someone will be talking to me and I'll be singing at the same time, but I'm listening, and people would pick me up on that all the time. And I remember my sister would always say, why do you change plans all the time? Like, we'll arrange to do something and then next minute you'll say, oh no, let's do this instead. Or, oh, let's change the time. And I now realize how annoying I have been over all this time, and I can see how it happens. And I try to work on that. But I guess the other thing we haven't spoken about is the fact that I tried medication as an experiment. I thought, I don't think I'll, take it, but I'll do it for 3 weeks straight and see how I go. Just because, they give it to kids. Kids can't explain how they're feeling maybe properly. So I thought I'll do it as an experiment and, did it for 3 weeks. And right from the first time I took it, I went, oh my goodness. It was like putting on glasses for the first time when you can't see properly. And I just knew how to get my life in order. I knew how to clean my house in order. I knew how to finish a job before I started the next one. And it's all these subtle little things. But at the end of the week, 3 weeks, I said to my husband, I've said this a few times now, but what do you think? I'm going back to the doctor. What do you think? And he said, I love it. Like the closest person to me, and he could see such massive changes in so many little things. And it might be as simple as I'm really clumsy when I don't take the medication. I'll spill things, I'll drop things, I'll break things, forgetful, so many little things. But when I do take it, even my emotions are way more stable. So that now I realize that the anxiety, generalized anxiety that I'd had all my life, I just thought was part of my makeup. But on Ritalin, anywhere I'd normally go that I'd have anxiety, the supermarket with the bright lights, or sometimes driving in busy traffic, all that stimulation coming in, on Ritalin, anxiety's gone. I just could not believe it. And I'd test myself out, maybe a social situation, a big crowd, going to the football. My husband works at the footy, and I used to not like going to the big crowd because there was so much stimulation I was taking in. And on Ritalin, I'm like, I feel so relaxed. I was fine. It actually calms you down and you can focus and get stuff done. So I think it's so worth an experiment if people are being diagnosed.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I also, use medication to help me to self-regulate. And that's one of the main things that people with ADHD find difficult. Self-regulating emotions, whether it's sadness or jumping into anger.
Yes.
Self-regulating attention.
Yes.
And regulating where that is.
So do you, out of curiosity, and you don't have to answer this, but do you then decide to take the medication daily, or do you just take it when you feel like you need to concentrate?
Typical me, I looked at what the research says. So I take medication. I tried Ritalin. It worked. I've had wow, this is how other people's brain feels.
Yes.
And then I had a reaction to it when I was coming off it. The dip when I was coming off, because it lasts for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So you have a short-acting one first. There's also a long-acting one.
Yeah.
I've asked to change to dexamphetamine, which is the other stimulant which works.
So I started on that, and that actually made me anxious. So it's interesting how different makeups can affect you differently.
Yes. And then I had a client who worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and she told me about the newest one, which is called Vyvanse.
Oh, yes.
And it's basically dexamphetamine with another ingredient which helps it release slowly. And that's what seems to work for me. It's gentle. The two you can have Ritalin when you're pregnant. Did you know that? It's pretty safe. And the way it works is that people with ADHD are looking for stimulation, constant stimulation. That can actually be eating food is very stimulating. Some people, or anything. And so that gives you the stimulation you need without having to seek it out.
Yes.
But yeah, medication's a personal journey. What does the research say? the research says that adults with ADHD, medication works very well often if you find the right one and the right dose. And then coaching, Angie.
Yeah.
So, because one of the things I've heard ADHD described, knowing what to do, but not doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's the planning and organising sometimes, or getting started with tasks.
Yeah.
So that coaching idea is just really goals driven. What do you want to do? What is it that you want to do? And then checking back in.
Yeah. So that's, mate. Well, I did a couple of coaching sessions before I tried medication, and I had I was talking to this lovely lady, and I thought, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, write it down. Yeah, that's a great idea too. Had all these great ideas, and I didn't follow through with any of them. So I wonder now, with the medication combined with that, whether that would help.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest with you, I don't feel I'm at the end of my medication journey. The person who, my GP, psychiatrist actually said, video yourself or write notes down about how good it feels, because you'll go through a period where you feel bad about taking it. And to be honest with you, because you wonder where your real self is.
Yeah.
And with short-acting medication, you can just take it at any time. It lasts for 3 hours. But coaching works very well, and so that's what I want to do. I want to help people and through a coaching model to reflect on doing what they want to do. So
goal setting. That's something I don't think she did, but that's what you'll do. Goal setting, which I remember now as a youngster. My mum must have been concerned about my career path or something. So she bought me the Tony Robbins, I think it was cassettes maybe, or maybe it was CDs. And I thought, oh, she's spent all this money, I'm going to have to listen now. And he had me setting goals, and it was the first time I'd ever done that. And I was ticking them off, like getting a record deal and the coaching you'll be doing. That's probably awesome for
goal setting. You just froze just a second in that. So goal setting helped with you, and you got a record deal?
Yeah, I did. That it sounds good in theory. It was with BMG Records, and I had the idea of the type of music I wanted to do, and then ended up settling for cheesy pop that they wanted me to do. So it's just one of those. I did tick the goal, but it wasn't the version of it I wanted to. But still.
Well done, Angie. Your mum needn't have worried. You've done brilliantly in your career, just the way you are. But I must say, though, that it's a good demonstration of the point. How closely does it align with your values? And that's what we find difficult to stop. To stop and go, hang on, this latest interest, this latest focus, and then does it align with my values? And if it does, then great.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important, because we can spend all this time. And one of the things we find difficult is time management.
Oh yeah.
When we're in a focus period, it's nothing but that, and so has a cost as far as time.
Yes.
And then the other thing is planning, actually, and planning and achieving goals. And so they're the two main things. And the research is that medication can't do anything for those two areas. Whereas your working memory and what some of the things you described, medication can be very good at helping with that.
Yeah.
So it's goal setting. And so interesting. So what advice would you give to yourself, that girl who was hanging out with the naughty kids, but we're not allowed to get stories? What advice would you give? What honest advice?
Dear. That's a good question. Because there wasn't really options with schooling back then, I guess I would be trying to get her to understand how her brain worked. Like if someone could have stepped in, told me about all the great things about my personality to give me the confidence, but explained, hang on, your brain works differently too. And lots of brains are the same as mine, but don't compare my brain to the academic kids, because that's where the self-esteem issues come in. You've got to recognise what your strengths are. If someone could have said to me, yep, you're really creative and that's your superpower, channel that. If it's art you're into, if it's music, go for it 100%. Don't worry if you don't know about maths. Don't worry if you don't want to read novels. You can learn by audiobooks, or you can learn in different ways that weren't available then. So I guess that I'm passionate about young people, and especially watching my kids. I would want to be across it and see, because it's obviously very hereditary ADHD. So I'm watching closely and seeing some little signs. But I remind my kids of their strengths as much as I can, because school is definitely not set up to. I read something the other day about when we start school, how our brains think outside the square, outside of the box all the time. We're really creative, and a little kid will just come up with these crazy ideas, but then the school system gradually makes you come back to, oh, this is how you need to do it, and everything else like isn't acknowledged. So by the time you come out of school, that creative out of the box thinking has been dulled down, whereas people potentially with ADHD, that needs to be embraced and lifted up and celebrated. And maybe do you want to start you should start a school for ADHD.
I do. I am.
You
I will.
do? Fantastic.
I'm starting a school. Well, it's a alternative school program for disengaged youth, and it involves working with horses, the environment,
Awesome.
and animals. So doing.
Yes.
Boosting someone's confidence, right?
When you say that, though, I also think the kids don't want to be thought of as, oh, these kids can't do normal school, so we'll give them a special school. It has to be celebrated that, are you gifted in this area? This school's designed for you. It's like an uplifting thing, not you can't cut it in normal school. I know you wouldn't do it like that. You
put your finger right on the issue that the school system has been challenged with for many years. Mm-hmm. You're right.
Yeah.
I started up these Lego robotics clubs a while ago, and I got a research assistant. She did the research. I did the club. And it was that. And we did exactly what you said. We did, who's interested in robotics? Come along. And we'll do a club and kids can interact. If you say, this is the Disability Robotics Club, no one wants to turn up to that thing.
I don't care how much I love robots. I ain't turning up.
So, Angie, you're a very smart, intuitive, and probably wise person.
Very kind.
Yeah. So you have put your finger again on the two things. So self-reflection. I mean, for anyone, for absolutely anyone, know yourself. It's so important.
Yes, number one.
And then the second thing is for a lot of kids with ADHD and adults is, what can you do really well? And so it sounds like for you, it was singing.
Yeah.
And so did singing save you at school?
Absolutely. I think, as you were saying, you were good at sport, so you had something to give you a bit of a boost with your confidence. So that was, if I didn't have that, I'd hate to think what I would be doing now. It's just, I remember, like, I didn't start singing until I was about 13. I was actually in church one day and saw this one girl singing, and it just mesmerized me. And I thought, oh, I just want to be able to do that. And I asked my mum for singing lessons, and she looked at me strangely because no one in the family is musical. She'd never heard me sing. So it was all an experiment, but I would just kill to get to my lesson. For 10 years, Mum could bribe me with anything with singing lessons. So that's probably what saved me for sure, even though I did still go off the rails. If I didn't have that one thing to anchor me and keep coming back to, I don't know what I'd be doing right now.
That's great. And the great thing about school and all the academic kids, or those who just found it easy, like maths and times tables, I never found those easy. But, they look up to the singing, the people who are good at singing. And for me, I was good at water polo and other sports, athletics. And so, it wasn't just a little boost of confidence. It was those people are looking up to me and social capital there amongst other kids. Yeah. So it really did, was amazing for me. And some people turn it into a career, of course. Yeah. People with ADHD can be great sports people and
Mm.
Entrepreneurs, mostly entrepreneurs is what's
Yeah.
being researched. Do you know any ADHD people who are entrepreneurs that are out?
Yeah, well, not that. Well, I look at my friend circle, and most of them do work for themselves, and maybe they haven't been diagnosed, but I'm quietly diagnosing them.
Send them to me, Angie. Send them to me. It's
Yeah,
the self-reflection piece, isn't it?
yeah,
Honestly,
yeah,
whatever diagnosis or not, what
yeah.
what are these patterns that keep happening over
Yeah.
and over in your life? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like what you're doing is so amazing because what I'm starting to, I mean, when I first got the diagnosis, I thought part of me felt like this absolute shock and a revelation that, oh, this makes sense of my whole life, partly embarrassed. I was just confused and excited that I knew that there was a reason for certain things. And I was nervous to tell people to start with, but then I thought it kind of needs to be celebrated as well because there are some great gifts within it if you can harness the right things. And I think by us sharing what you're doing and speaking freely about it, I know even from the TV show that I've done, a few people have said since that they've been diagnosed after watching it, and they'll write to me or call and say, my life has changed. They're trying the medication and they just cannot believe how good they feel.
That's
It's
amazing.
crazy.
That's
And
brilliant.
so many adults, because they thought that we used to grow out of it, didn't they? But now they're acknowledging adults still have it. We just work our way around it in some way. So I think educating more adults that it's everywhere. And once you know about it, you start seeing it everywhere, don't you? Don't you see it in people?
Oh, absolutely.
Of course, in your job.
Yeah, it is. But if we were all more honest about who we are, strengths and weaknesses, I think the world would be a better place. And yeah, people with ADHD do find it difficult to concentrate on something that's boring, and so and can be very successful after school because school is not a great environment for me.
And one other thing I think is fascinating too is how if it is left undiagnosed and people do start to go off the rails and be drawn to the wrong crowd, they do say our jails are full of people with undiagnosed ADHD because you're just drawn to that risk-taking behaviour to give you that excitement.
Yes.
So that's another reason I reckon it, like getting in there at school age and just discovering it and understanding it more and more.
And for blokes and females as well, anger is a real big issue. And managing, so self-regulation is what ADHD is all about, and emotions is a big part of it. And so, really losing your temper is a horrible thing for anybody to experience. And I think our jails, those people haven't been able to manage that from one way or another.
Really?
The other thing that I've recently learned is that a lot of people, perhaps like you and I, are born with ADHD, but when you experience trauma, when somebody has experienced some form of trauma, they basically can get diagnosed with ADHD because they're experiencing the symptoms of self-regulation challenges, of hypersensitivity, so post-traumatic stress. And so, yes, somebody may well have experienced some sort of trauma in their life.
That presents as ADHD symptoms. That's interesting.
Yes. And so, and in fact, trauma can look like a whole bunch of things, but they also need help to regulate their emotions, to trust others, and to be interested in things.
Yep.
So nice to talk with you. Quickly to finish off, what are your personal interests? What gets you out of bed when it's not work day?
Isn't it funny, because mostly I find my interests are linked in with whatever job I'm doing anyway at the time. So there's nothing that really I love being in nature. I love walking around the river here where we're down in Geelong. I love well, at the moment I'm writing songs just while I'm trapped at home. I'm just writing songs to God, really. Whether anyone will ever hear them, I'm just writing to him. And I love, hanging out, being stupid with the kids. doing silly things with them. That's about it. I keep it pretty simple. I just like and good coffee. That's what.
Oh yes,
I really like.
that was my medication before medication.
Yeah.
Lots of coffee.
Yes.
Angie, I'm a bit like you. Maybe it's the hyperfocus. When I'm working and I'm thinking about work, but I really am trying to force myself to have another side to life. And nature seems to be brilliant for that.
Yes.
It's almost like meditating as well, being out in nature.
Absolutely. Have you done forest therapy?
Nope.
Oh my gosh, we did it on the show last season, and it's pretty simple, but we went down into the Otways, and the lady guided us through. It's basically mindfulness in the forest, and it's things like slowing down your walk to half pace and picking things up and touching them, feeling the texture, crushing up a leaf, smelling that leaf, and just like listening to the sounds and just slowing everything down. It's so good. So you can do that anywhere though. You can walk down your street and do that same thing of deliberately taking slower steps, which is hard for people with ADHD.
But needed to reflect on what is this latest thing that I'm into, and is it really what I want to be doing?
Yep, exactly. It's not until we become still that we can hear, your intuition or the voice of God or whatever you want to call it. You need that time out to just sit and hear. And I just sit down and say, okay, God, I'm listening. What do you want to tell me? And I keep a notepad and pen, and I just write without thinking and see what comes out.
Amazing. Amazing. I could talk to you all day. It's been really lovely to chat.